Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Millis School Committee meeting on January 7th. I'm going to take attendance, then I'm going to go over some kind of ground rules about how we conduct our meeting. This is a meeting for school committee business, so we have a full agenda, and I know that we have quite a few people signed in for open session, so we're going to get to that shortly. So first we're going to take attendance. I'm here as the chair. Ms. Canestrari. Here. Mr. Conroy.
Yep.
Ms. Gibbons.
Here.
Mr. Powers.
Here.
And Superintendent Millis.
Here.
And then our Director of School Finance and Human Resource, Terry, is here as well. So this meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All committee meeting videos are also posted to the Millis Public Schools website under School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee minutes and agendas can be found on the school committee page of the Millis Public Schools website. Persons wishing to speak during open session must sign in before the meeting starts. And I have your list right here. Thank you for signing in. Comments are not to exceed 3 minutes in time. Individuals may not name students, staff, or parents. All topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on this evening's agenda, and all comments must be directed to the chair. The committee may or may not respond to public comments. It shall be to their discretion to discuss it now or at a later date. And of course, all of our times are approximate for when you can watch us on TV. If you have signed in for open session, we have only slated 5 minutes for this. As I can see, there's quite a few people here, so we'll extend that to 15 minutes so that we can keep on. We do have quite a big agenda tonight with other things happening. And when you come up to speak, please don't repeat things that other people have said. This will help expedite so that everybody can come in and speak and say something new that we can all kind of hear. Okay, so our first person we have is, I'm not sure, 26 Timberline, Susie?
I decided in case I need to talk, so I want to say.
You're good. Okay. Kelly McMahon.
I'm passing it off to Coach.
Okay. Jamie Scarso. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Scavone. I am a parent of 2 children in the town of Millis, one attending the high school, one attending the middle school. I've had the honor of having my children be on the teams that have been coached by Allison Marr. I know we're not supposed to name names, but just to let you know where my background is, and Yvonne Fitzgerald, as well as many other staff members here. They've had an amazing opportunity. Tonight, we are here to talk a little bit about the policy and hopefully a policy change from the disappointing decision that was happened in the short notice meeting that happened in December. Just talking a little bit about that decision, there were little regard for the consequences, both emotional and financial. It was developmentally inappropriate and harmful to the students that were affected, and we need a policy that can't be interpreted based on the will of one person or a small subset of people. So what we're doing tonight needs to enact a policy that is clear and concise, that protects the players rather than the adults, all the players, in fact, as well as the school. I'd like to propose that we create a policy with clear if-then order of operations for qualifying statements so that there's no misinterpretation of what the intentions of the handbook are, that we are making sure that we comply with the MIA rules, which it seemed as though that the athletic director and the superintendent, as well as the principals, had done and was not even acknowledged, that we have clarity about who is and who is not eligible to play, and we protect all the athletes from the challenges with clear consequences for the adult, which means that I would love to see something enacted with this policy that states that we can no longer remove students who have registered, been accepted, participated in, and are currently participating in something mid-season. So I'd like to see a policy here that does all of those things so that we do not have to be here ever again. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Allison Marr.
Good evening. Tonight we have an opportunity to take a major step towards achieving the mutual goal of providing and allowing the best and most appropriate experience available for our middle school track and field athletes here in Millis. Our administrators have collaborated to draft an amendment to the middle school handbook athletic policy that should leave no confusion or ambiguity. This new adapted policy can clear the way for all of our middle school athletes to train for and compete in the events of their choosing at the most appropriate venues without violations. One group that I wanted to ensure was in agreement with the middle school participation is the coaches of the Tri-Valley League. I'd like to share a few comments. Rob Mosher from Dover-Sherborne. The fact that you are able to have middle school athletes on your team getting experience and learning track and field skills is something that honestly I envy about your program. There should be no roadblocks to kids developing skills and a passion for a sport. You have both always been very professional and transparent when it comes to your middle school athletes participating and the scoring implications that come along with that. Sam Cowell from Bellingham. As a fellow Tri-Valley League coach, I welcome Millis's athletes to participate and grow in all of the events held at our meets, regardless of their grade level, and I hope to see the hard work of the Millis coaches continue to build their great program. Jennifer Tian from Westwood. I commend the ongoing practice of allowing middle school student athletes from Millis to train and compete with their peers in the high school programs. This initiative has proven to be beneficial not only to the athletes in Millis, but also to those from neighboring towns. By competing together, student athletes form valuable friendships, improve their athletic skills, and gain a deeper appreciation for teamwork and dedication. These are important lessons that extend far beyond the track and field. I'm proud of Millis in their pursuit to provide student athletes an exemplary experience and wholeheartedly believe that supporting this initiative is a win-win for everyone involved. Jean Cant from Hopkinton. We at Hopkinton express our full support for Millis to allow middle school athletes to compete for your team. Even with such small numbers, you run a great program and clearly coach each athlete in a developmentally appropriate way. Andy Nassif from Medway. I have absolutely no problem with your middle school athletes competing as non-scoring participants at our upcoming meet on January 24th. In fact, I welcome them and hope they are participating. Coaches from the league are not just okay with Millis middle school participation. They invite it, fully support it, and think it's one of the great things that Millis has to offer its young athletes. All coaches now fully understand the situation and will ensure that middle school results are not factored into final results. They want our middle school athletes there. Us coaches want that. Our athletes want that. Our administration wants that. Our community wants that. I currently see absolutely no reason not to allow our team to return to how we were happily and successfully functioning prior to December 23rd. I ask that you please vote to approve the proposed amendment. Thank you.
All right, we have Danielle Wainwright.
There's nothing they have said that I even.
Okay,
Nothing I can.
Christian Fuentes.
Hello, Christian Fuentes, father of 3, 2 high schoolers and a middle schooler. I unfortunately was unable to attend the other meeting. I was on vacation, but I have had the opportunity to watch it on YouTube. There's a few questions, observations, and statements I'd like to make. So, in that meeting, I noticed that there were 2 clauses stated in the handbook. One was able to participate up to sub-varsity, and the other one was able to participate at the lowest available level. I'd like to know, how are we determining which clause to use, and why are we not interpreting the second clause as one designed specifically for this type of situation, where there is no sub-varsity classification, such as the mile run? It was mentioned that they have said no to other middle school athletes competing at the varsity level in the past. My question is, what sports were those for? As we stated during the meeting, the objectives of the policies are to ensure that the children are participating in a safe manner. I have a 6th grade boy on the cross-country team who was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to run in 2 high school meets this year. It was the highlight of his cross-country career so far, and he held his own against the field. Had this been a tackle football game against 17 and 18-year-old varsity boys, his mother and I would not have allowed it, out of safety concerns. And we have to realize that not all sports are the same, and that some are safer and more appropriate for middle schoolers to compete against other kids. And lastly, the statement was made during the meeting by the select board, by the school board. Right or wrong, that is the policy. That was a shocking statement to hear. When it comes to our children, we should never choose wrong because of policy. And hopefully tonight, we can correct the verbiage of the handbook so we don't have to choose between right and wrong, and we can move forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, we have Emma Genovese. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Emma Genovese. I'm an 8th grade cross-country and track and field athlete. The decision made on December 23rd has greatly affected me and my teammates in a negative way. However, I'm hopeful that reviewing a new policy, the school board will be able to allow the middle schoolers to continue this long and established tradition of having middle schoolers run indoor track. While we don't count for points, the love for running is what counts. My experience and memories running indoor track meets at Reggie this year and last year have been some of my favorite experiences as a Millis athlete. Up to December 23rd, indoor track and field had been something I look forward to at the end of every day. Track and field has kept many 7th and 8th graders active during the winter. While the season is more than half over, I think that allowing middle schoolers the opportunity to run indoor track in the upcoming seasons is so important for the future of Millis athletes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, we have Allison Genovese. Okay. Kristen Hafford.
Good evening, and thank you for all that you guys are doing to make these hard decisions. I really respect what you guys are doing. I guess the thing that really surprised me about this process was that a decision was made based on there was ambiguity in the wording, and instead of sticking with sort of where things were and looking at it from the standpoint of we need to make it more consistent for everyone so that it's clearer for everyone, we changed it, or you made the decision to change it and then come back so that we are all here tonight having to address this. So the only thing that I request of you tonight would be we don't actually know, or I don't know, and I'm not aware of what the wording changes are yet, but you're asking us to speak to you prior to knowing what those are. So I would love to have an opportunity to potentially speak again after you guys have had your discussion so that you can hear what our response is to your discussion.
All right, Mike Carter.
I'm just here because I don't have a personal connection to the track team like a lot of people here. But so I don't have a child running, and I'm not a track coach. I'm no longer a high school coach. But looking out here, it is kind of personal. So I guess I do have a personal part of this. I just want to say that as a former high school coach and as a middle school, high school teacher, that the decision on December 23rd, however it was spun, the message that was sent was, we don't want our middle schoolers to support our high school teams. And I know that might not have been the intention, but that's the message that was sent. And I just want to say in front of everyone that we do want our middle school students supporting our high school teams. We need our middle school students. So that's really the only thing I wanted to add to all this. Everyone else said everything that was great, so thank you.
Zachary DeQuattro.
You'll have to excuse my voice. I got coach voice right now. Coaching too many teams. I think it's all personal. I'm Zachary DeQuattro, live on Spring Street. I'm a youth coach here, basketball, baseball, flag football. I have 3 children. One of them was on cross country this year. I have a little statement I'll read, but I would say we're all part of this community, so no matter how far removed you are, it is very personal. If we have learned anything as a society, we have learned that opportunity is paramount to success. No opportunity is more important than those afforded to our youth. Anything we do as parents, adults, community leaders, and as members of a society that limits healthy opportunity for the youth is a failure to nurture growth of the individual and our civilization as a whole. It is our duty as members of this community to foster all positive opportunities for the youth of our community, regardless of language. If there's a problem with language, it should be corrected for the positive fostering of opportunity of the youth. That's all I have.
Okay, we have Xander Hafford.
Hi there, my name is Xander Hafford. I am a freshman in high school. I don't currently do track, but I do cross country and I do spring track. And I would like to say, as somebody who's gone through the middle school running program, it is one of the biggest honors to be able to move up in 8th grade and in cross country and be able to go and run with varsity. Even, not counting, just being able to run and compete, and it really prepares you and makes sure you know what you're getting into when you move up into high school. And so I think we should keep this opportunity open to all of our middle schoolers, allowing them to have this opportunity and get sort of a head start into knowing what they're getting into moving up into high school and moving up into varsity. Even if we aren't counting their points and we aren't counting their place, just getting to see how well they do against varsity, and then making sure that they know that they're, it's a real sport. It's like any other sport. So thank you.
We have Yvonne Fitzgerald, and then Christopher Staples, you're last. Okay.
Hi, Yvonne Fitzgerald, varsity girls track coach. I work with Allison. Let me first start off before I say this, that I 100% respect the decision that you made on the 23rd because it was black and white. It was in the handbook and you had to follow the rules. So I totally respect that. And I immediately reached out to Mr. Mulaney and I said, okay, this devastating blow for our kids, no matter what it was, is what happened. So now this is a catalyst to make it better. So we immediately started talking about the amendment. So this is my heartfelt. I'm not Allison, she's black. She's very good about putting forth all the evidence and I'm all the emotional one. So just to start off, I started coaching track and field in the winter of 2019. I was asked to step in for a season, but only for a season, to help out a coach that was starting off a new business, and I fell in love with it. I got the opportunity to continue coaching, and it was completely baptism by fire. I was a softball coach and a soccer coach. Track and field is so different. But I took on that responsibility with pride. It took a few years and many trial and errors, but I finally reached a place of confidence as a coach for my athletes to get them to perform the best that they can. Allison and I have really put forth a lot of effort to train our athletes, regardless of age and ability. As a small competitive team, it isn't about winning. Our boys' team just lost 68-7. So this is not about winning. we are here to just get our athletes to be the best that can be and push them to the best that they can be. Whether they're high school, middle school, it does not matter to us. We have on our team state champions, and we also have kids who celebrate their personal best by 0.2 seconds. Alice and I have created a team and a family that works hard together and celebrates it together. Every athlete is important, and every athlete deserves to compete. We create intense training programs for all athletes, and they deserve to put that hard work to the test. In my years of coaching track and field, the girls have only won one meet. One. For Alice and I, it isn't about winning. We don't care about that. We truly don't. What we care about is creating and developing athletes to be the best they can be and feel part of a team and a family. Please approve the amendment that has been provided so that we have a positive future for our middle school athletes to be part of our track and field family for the future. Thank you.
Shaylin Conway.
Thank you guys for letting me speak. Sorry I was a little late. Hi everyone, my name is Shaylin Conroy, and for those of you who don't know me, I've been the captain of the cross-country team the past 2 seasons, and this year I'm also serving as a captain for both the winter and spring track teams. As a captain, I take my responsibility to be a leader seriously, which is why I wanted to share my perspective tonight on the topic of middle school participation in high school athletics. I am in full support of allowing middle school students to participate in high school athletics at the sub-varsity level and, when necessary, at the varsity level. This past cross-country season, with the help of a very talented group of 8th grade runners, the girls' team was able to achieve something that we hadn't done in my 4 years on the team, win a meet. Actually, we won 2. It was a really exciting and rewarding experience, and I'm so grateful that the 8th graders were granted a waiver to compete. When their participation in the state meet was challenged by my father, a school board member, I was very upset. I felt that it was wrong for these girls to be told one day that they could compete and the next they couldn't, but I'm very grateful that they were able to compete at the state cross-country meet and help our team. On another note, I know things have changed with track after the introduction of sub-varsity meets. It's unfortunate that the middle school athletes can't compete in the varsity heats at the Reggie Lewis Center due to MIAA and school rules. However, I understand this has been a long-standing precedent and is in line with the existing policies. I also want to address 2 assumptions that have been circulating. First, I want to state that the challenges brought forth by my father do not benefit me or my teammates. The challenge during cross-country would have prevented Millis from being able to compete as a team, and I was very upset by this. My father is fully aware of my stance on that. Second, I want to clarify that my father's position on the school committee has not given me special privileges as an athlete. The long-standing rule is that middle schoolers must compete at the lowest available level unless a waiver is granted. This rule applied to me when I was a middle school runner and basketball player, and I did not get any special privileges despite what many people have speculated. Moving forward, I hope that the decisions made are not only in the best interest of all athletes, but also follow the policies of the MIAA and TVL. Additionally, I hope no other Millis High School student athlete is publicly criticized or slandered for circumstances they had no control over. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our open session, and we're going to move on to some of our agenda items. Our first thing up is our student representative. Is he here?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Nicholas Roy, and I'm going to talk to you guys about some things that are going on in high school and things that are coming up. So last week we came back from our winter break, and it was really great to get back into the flow of things after a really restful break. On Monday the 20th, we will have no school because of Martin Luther King Day. Moving on to sports, the girls basketball team hosted a winter tournament during break that wrapped up. Overall, the team showed great preparation and played great defense. Lindsay Gradden and Caroline Connors earned the all-tournament and MVP recognition, and the Mohawks won the tournament as a whole. Today, the JV boys and girls basketball teams are playing against Medfield, along with the varsity boys and girls. Good luck to all of our sports teams today. For clubs, students in DECA are participating in district conferences on Thursday and Friday. And good luck to them as they participate in various business challenges. The Environmental Action Club is hosting their annual bottle and can drive on Sunday, January 26th. And finally, gently used clothing, shoes, toys, books, and accessories are needed for the Peer Leaders Thrift Shop. This thrift shop will happen on the 23rd of January in the high school. Thanks for your time, everyone. Any questions? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and now we have our teacher representative, Ms. Kofi.
Good evening.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Stephanie Copese. I'm the teacher rep to the school committee for the district. We'll keep it short and sweet because I know there's a lot of people who are interested in things later on down the agenda. The CFB has introduced a multicultural library. This mobile library features books and items representing the diverse cultures of our students at CFB. The books and items were donated by the Hughes family as well as HonorCraft. They've also been awarded a grant from the NCTA, which is the Norfolk County Teachers Association, to purchase additional items. Students have been interacting with this mobile cart and have been excited to see their cultures represented in the materials. In addition to book materials, there are things such as dreidels, toy sushi sets, nesting dolls, and a matching game in Italian. So they're very much looking forward to growing this library and expanding to all of our cultures. Up in the middle school, the grade 8 ELA students are learning about the different types of irony, dramatic, verbal, and situational. And the middle school drama is back for their spring season, and they are under the direction of Deb Hickey at this point, and they are holding their auditions tomorrow for their MTEG submission, which will happen in May. At the high school, the High School Drama Club, under the direction of senior Annie Rolag, under the auspices of Victoria Bartley, have started rehearsing for their admission for their one-act play to the March MTEG competition. We have the Girls Basketball Faculty Appreciation Game this Friday, which will be super exciting. And as Nicholas already mentioned, we have our DECA teams heading out on Friday. For looking ahead, and I had mentioned this last time, so I'm going to try to nail a date down with you guys. Isa Briones is hosting as part of her senior project the Environmental Climate Change Conference. So this is a completely student-run conference by ISA. It'll be happening on February 27th, and it will also feature the unveiling of Emma Power's new mural in the cafeteria. So we were looking to nail down a date to bring ISA in to tell you guys about the conference. So do you have any suggestions as to which meeting you would like to have her attend?
Not next one, because I won't be there.
Okay, not the next one in 2 meetings. Let's take a look. Does anyone have any objections to that? February 4th?
February 4th is
that
perfect. Thank
That
you.
works.
Do you want a couple of dates to see what
Nope,
would
I'm
work?
going to tell her February 4th.
Okay.
It will work. Any questions for me this evening?
Nope.
Don't think so.
Great, thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our action items. Our first item is our meeting minutes from December 10th.
Madam Chair. Madam
Let's
Chair,
get
I make a
Ms.
motion to approve the December 10th, 2024 meeting minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Consideration to approve the December 23rd meeting minutes.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Gibbons.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 23rd, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Consideration to approve the executive minutes from July to December 2024.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Conroy.
I make a motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes from July through December 2024 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Consideration to approve the amended tech collaborative agreement.
Yeah, so the TEC is the Education Collaborative. It's one of the 2 collaboratives that Millis belongs to. There are 15 member districts in TEC, and King Philip Regional School District and Sharon School District have asked to join and submitted proposals to join. The Tech Board of Directors have voted unanimously to include Sharon and KP. And with this, we'd have to amend our collaborative agreement. And to do that, the school committees of each of the current 15 districts have to vote on approving the change in the collaborative agreement. And if a majority of those 15 districts vote the affirmative, then KP and Sharon would become members. Adding these two districts to the collaborative would increase opportunities for more diverse programming. It could increase some revenue to the collaborative, which would, essentially benefit Millis through professional development and other fee-based services, and it could provide some space for future programs in KP and Sharon buildings. Adding these districts would not create any additional financial burden on member districts. It could actually, minor help us with lowering fees, but that would not be significant. That would not be the reason to do this. But both districts are in close proximity, as you know, and Board of Directors believes this would be a good fit for the Tech Collaborative.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Stevens.
I make a motion to. Because you need us to approve
Yeah,
that,
to
right?
vote on whether or not to approve a change in the.
Yeah. Yeah, will you do it? My agenda won't scroll.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the proposed amendment, amended Tech Collaborative Agreement to expand the membership to include King Philip Regional School and the Sharon Public Schools.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, consideration to approve the proposed amendment to the middle school athletics to the middle school handbook. Mr. Finney gonna come up? And
Yeah, if Mr.
Mr. Finney.
Finney and Ms.
Ms. Hurley.
Hurley
can
could
come up?
join us. I'm looking to get this projected on the screen. I don't know, Mr. Bush, you might have to help me on this. It doesn't seem like my display preferences are showing up.
I beat ya. Sporty spike. Good evening.
And while Dave's helping me out, basically, the proposed amendment would address issues with the current language when applied to the middle school athletics participating in indoor track and field. The amendment is intended to provide middle school athletes with an opportunity to gain experience participating at the high school level in a safe and controlled environment. It regulates a past practice in which middle school track athletes have been able to participate in high school winter track meets at the Reggie Lewis Center and other indoor track facilities. Participation in these meets provides middle school students with a healthy, safe, and engaging athletic and social experience, and supports continued participation at the high school level. This amendment has been reviewed by the TVL and thanks, Dave, approved by the president of the TVL, and it's been shared with the MIAA, and the MIAA informed us that they don't write letters to individual school committees on policies, but I was able to speak with Keith Brouillard, who's an executive director, an assistant executive director at the MIA, who handles middle school events and issues, and He said he'd like to take some time to review this policy with Millis and the TVL at the end of the season to make sure it's comprehensive. But in the short term, he said he would be okay with this amendment for the current season. And here's the proposed amendment, and I'm sorry if it's not large enough. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger.
Thank you.
So, and the changes would be in red, and there's also some other changes that we noted when we were looking at this. So I'm just going to go through the changes. Middle school sports, the third line down, middle school sports may include football, soccer, volleyball, cross country, basketball, softball, spring track, and baseball. Those are sports that may have middle level, middle school teams. There might be some others, the language that says may include kind of protects us there, but we, since we do have cross-country, basketball, and spring track, we want to just note that. And then we've had students in 6th grade participating in middle school cross-country and spring track. That wasn't noted in the policy, the middle school handbook policy, so we inserted that. And then, this is the participation in varsity and sub-varsity, and this is just about the grades for eligibility, just modifying it for the current school year. And then we get into middle school students' participation in high school varsity sports, and this is the bulk of the change, the proposed amendment. And it says, unless granted an MIAA Rule 53 waiver specifically approving varsity level participation, middle school students in 7th and 8th grade, grade 7 and 8 are not eligible to compete at the varsity level, with an exception. And the exception would be indoor track and field. For instances where an indoor track and field meet is held at a facility that can only accommodate the entire league to compete as a whole, middle school athletes may participate in high school varsity track meets on a non-competitive basis, provided, one, if there is a sub-varsity event, and the word event, we mean like the shot put or the long jump. Those are events. They're not races. So an event or heat of a race, if there's a sub-varsity level event or heat, they will participate in the sub-varsity event or heat. If there's only one heat, they would be eligible to participate in that. They cannot score points for the high school team, and their participation has no bearing on the final outcome of the meet. They do not displace any high school athletes, students in grades 9 to 12, from competing in their events. They cannot earn varsity points or a varsity letter. They're not eligible for the Tri-Valley League Showcase or any MIAA state meets. An exception is the Tri-Valley. They may participate in the freshman mile at the TVL Showcase because it's a non-scoring event. It's not a varsity level event. Their participation does not violate any Tri-Valley League or MIA rules. And middle school participants must meet all the academic requirements noted above, the ones noted above of what it takes to participate at the sub-varsity level. And then the final decision on whether a middle school athlete may participate in a high school indoor track and field meet on a non-competitive basis will rest with the building principal and AD in consultation with the high school track coach. And that's kind of a way to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. Sure. The final decision on whether a middle school athlete may participate in a high school indoor track and field meet on a non-competitive basis will rest with the building principal and the athletic director in consultation with the high school track coach. So that's to make sure everyone knows who's participating, and also that, you know, the coach would have great input on, you know, what, you know, like one of the speakers said before, you know, a sixth grader playing tackle football against a like what's appropriate. A high school track coach would have insight into that. So that's the proposal, and the middle school principal, Early, and athletic director, Finney, are here if you have further questions.
Yeah, question. So, does this amendment preclude us from needing a waiver for varsity participation? Is that I'm struggling with understanding the middle level waiver policy for MIAA seems really explicit. Must have a waiver to participate, right? Right, at all, right, at any level, it says it must have a waiver. The MIAA is okay with us not following their rules? Is that?
From our discussion with Keith today, they are okay at this point right now for the rest of the season with this amendment.
Yeah, I spoke to
we both spoke
the
to
MIA
him,
liaison,
right.
and he said that's something that, you know, we might want to look at closely to make sure that in the future, we make sure that knot is tied. But he said he would be okay with it as written right now. He would like to work with the TVL and Millis after the season to look at this policy.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Ms. Stevens. Can I ask why we didn't get a waiver for this season?
We never have.
So if I just pull out from the MIAA that.
No, for indoor track, we're talking about indoor track, correct?
Yes.
We've never received a waiver for indoor track before, since I've been AD and before that, because of one team.
So this year, there's a varsity and junior varsity available for middle school, for indoor track.
Sub-varsity, yes.
Yeah.
Not JV, they're not classifying it as JV.
Sure. So, I don't know if that's necessarily correct. We're in receipt of documentation that has it called out as JV athletes and varsity.
From a league
athletes.
standpoint, we've been instructed to call it sub-varsity. From
Okay.
the AD meeting.
But, so, sub-varsity and varsity.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So,
But those sub-varsity meets were created after the season had started.
okay. But even for middle school athletes, according to the MIAA, to participate in what they say in bold in their policy,
Right.
which is consideration will be given only for sub-varsity teams. This is related to middle level participation on high school teams, MIAA Rule 53 waivers. It's their exact documentation.
Correct.
And what it says under the policy statement is that consideration will be given only for sub-varsity teams unless the school offers only a varsity level team. Approved Rule 53 middle level waiver students may only participate in the lowest level offered. And that waivers are required, and that middle level waivers cannot be applied for after the first possible day of competition for each season.
Right, and that was, and the sub-varsity meets were created after the season had started, so that's why a mid-level waiver was not requested.
Okay.
And they're not even
middle
real,
school
they're not even really
athletes to
meets.
participate in high school athletics at all, there is a requirement for a middle level participation. So I guess my question is, why didn't we get a middle level participation?
Because we never have,
And
to this point.
Can we agree that just because we haven't done it in the past, doesn't mean it is not a violation of the MIAA middle level
Sure.
waiver?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, could we please direct the audience to not comment while we're having discussion with the speakers?
Yeah, so comment time has ended, I'm sorry, unfortunately. Ms. Cannistrati.
So with the, sorry, when I look at the proposed language in the amendment. So just as an understanding of my background, I spent a lot of years in compliance and working and writing policy and procedure. So the words to me are, you know, what I truly focus on, and obviously I'm learning to apply it in this environment. Let's see. On bullet 2, they cannot score points for the high school team and their participation has no bearing on the final outcome of the meet. How can we guarantee when we're at these meets that it isn't happening?
Well, I mean, as far as having our coaches and having the discussion that it is not included, those discussions are usually had, and they have been had in the past, where I would say most of the TBL league track coaches know that we have middle school participants, and they're not supposed to. Sorry. Sorry. I don't think you'll be able to hear. The mic's just for the TV. So they know that and usually when the final score comes in, our coaches meet with the other team's coaches and remove those scores.
Okay.
So yes, as you mentioned or someone mentioned with Bellingham earlier in the year, a mistake was made for sure, and they didn't remove them, unfortunately, as the home team. So that mistake was made.
What date was
no
that?
denying that.
What event was that? Do we know the date?
Bellingham. I don't
I
have a
think
specific
it
date.
was December 18th,
18th.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just had an instance of a violation, and would this be a violation of MIA policy?
As far as editing the score.
So
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
the middle
Yeah, I think-
schoolers' points
Yeah, we
were
said that
actually
earlier.
used
We said
in
that-
that.
we said
So
that earlier, yeah.
in the total
Yeah,
points,
we
correct?
said that earlier. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that
Actually, it's been
because
stated constantly that it never happened and it wouldn't happen, and not until it was brought to the administration's attention today was it recognized. So the
Correct.
whole
It was first
the
brought
whole-
up to us
the whole-
today.
The whole premise and the whole concept is, we've never done it, we don't keep score, we don't keep their points, and in reality,
Yeah,
we have been all year.
Mistake happened.
And
One
we
mistake
understand
happened.
mistakes happen.
Yeah.
Just to understand, though, I come up from a world that's very black and white, and I'm trying to fit that into here, especially when it comes to the kids, because we want to do
Yeah,
the
we want
best
them
for
all to
them.
participate, sure.
But when it comes to the policy, you know, we are trying to drive towards getting them to where they need to be, but then we just see that, and I was the one who saw it, because I go and I verify things. I see that we're proposing this amendment, and then I go and I see on 12/18, it just happened and it wasn't caught by any of the administration. So I just wanted to make sure going forward that there are, because that's not our job is to make sure policies
Correct.
are upheld as
sure.
far as, our world, but you guys are the administrators, so I just want to make sure, because I
Yeah.
would hate for the MIAA to come and be like, you broke
Yeah,
the policy.
sure.
So that would be
Yeah,
a
it would,
detriment of the
it's,
children.
yeah, I would have to make sure the coaches, as it is their responsibility when they're at the meets, and myself is not there, or do we receive, the final scores or anything to check over, but that's something that obviously mistake was made, and they know that, and even though it was unintentional, sure.
And I'd like to point something out about the Rule 53 waiver that Denise brought up. This is almost a case of the MIA not following their own policies, because that policy number 1 says consideration will be given only for sub-varsity teams unless the school offers only a varsity level team. Well, and I'm reluctant to say this, but we have a basketball team, girls basketball has a varsity, a middle school waiver for 8th graders to play at the varsity level. We also have JV teams, and their policy says it's only for sub-varsity unless varsity is the only team. So, it kind of points to the trouble that these areas get so gray.
Well,
and I think that's part of the challenge that we're having.
Yeah.
As our charge is budget and policy, we're looking at the existing policy that we have, looking at the proposed amendment, think it was stated, at least by myself, clearly at the last meeting, that I think I'll speak for everybody, you can correct me, we are all in favor of middle school athletes participating in high school athletics. The issue that we are discussing is the ability for a subset of athletes to have an opportunity to participate at the varsity level. And for me personally, the equity of that, where some and not all have the ability to participate at the varsity level, is problematic for me. It's not equitable. Sure. So why is it okay? So I'm not going to, Madam Chair, I'm not going to respond to anybody in the audience, but our charge as a board is to determine the policies that are put in front of us. So to ensure that there is no misinformation, the board, I think every member of the board shared that there is support for having our middle school athletes participate in high school athletics. The issue brought before us is varsity. Our policy states through sub-varsity. And the issue that we're debating is related to varsity. And this amendment that's brought before us this evening puts an exception in for a single sport. And we were advised by council to ask for the language ahead of this meeting. It is our right. Council advised us to do it. We did it. The committee presented multiple rounds, as I'm sure the administration can attest to, of questions, of things that we wanted to have before us this evening to help us deliberate this issue. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get all of those things that we had wanted to help us with that. And part of that was written confirmation, even though they say that they won't do it. Part of that was written confirmation from the MIAA that what this language is, they believe abides by their rules. I've reviewed in great detail all the MIAA and the TVL policies to try to see if there's a way where this aligns with their policies. I am not an attorney. My review of it is actually raised additional problems with how the district has been functioning. So I guess my whole point of starting this very long-winded speech was the board is in favor of athletes participating in high school sports. The issue is at the varsity level.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Mr.
If I could just, I'll get it, but if I could be obliged, 2 minutes?
Sure.
So I want to give a little bit of my context in terms of how we got here before I speak specifically to the amendment. So at the start of November, there was a question regarding the interpretation of, and past practice regarding the line in this existing language that reads, no middle school student will be allowed to replace a position that could be held by a high school student. Given that past practice was that no middle school student participated in postseason competitions, there was a concern regarding the impact to high school students. As part of that evaluation, the superintendent was told by the school's legal counsel that the committee, and therefore the district, could not rely on past practice or intent of meaning and needed to strictly enforce the policy per the language. Fast forward 5 weeks from that, and the committee becomes aware that the indoor track team, led by the same coach, with the same athletic director, and the same superintendent, who demanded the strict interpretation of November, were not in compliance with the policy due to the availability of sub-varsity opportunities. While not all of the sub-varsity opportunities, specifically JV meets, existed in prior years. Their introduction this year made the lack of compliance pretty straightforward. The fact that the 12-23 meeting had to be held was because the superintendent, athletic director, and coaches believed that while the district needed to enforce the same policy in November, that we should all ignore the language of the policy and legal counsel instruction and allow it to be violated because it would bring trouble. Ironically, I believe the same trouble threatened in the fall if the committee did not follow strict interpretation and ignore past practice. And if I may digress on that for a moment, I want to clarify why I didn't attend the meeting on 12/23. While there was no legal or ethical reason for me to recuse myself from the meeting or the vote, I chose to do so in an attempt to ease the vitriol that was abound on social media regarding my influence on this process, but more importantly, the unnecessary and despicable accusations and threats made towards my daughter. Unfortunately, it was not as successful as I had hoped. I've chosen to be in this position. I open myself up to criticism and, believe it or not, sometimes credit on the positions I take on issues. The attacks on any child crosses the line. Everyone who participated in that or saw it and didn't call out as inappropriate are really the ones who need to evaluate their ethics. Thankfully, in the most grotesque instances, such as a threat to slander her to her future college, 2 people called it out. Unfortunately, it was not the individuals who were responsible for the original post, nor the most frequent contributors who kept the attacks going for a week. I truly hope none of the individuals' kids are ever subject to the treatment my daughter received. As for the matter at hand, I have several concerns regarding the proposed amendment and the misinformation used to garner support based on the vote of the committee and what it meant on 12/23. First, the rationale of the amendment as it was originally written and provided to the committee stated that the amendment is intended to provide middle school athletes with an opportunity to gain experience competing at the high school level in a safe and controlled environment. It is the inverse rationale of both the MIAA policy and the TVL guidelines, which are included in this policy and left there, where the MIAA states that the waivers are there in order for districts to fill multiple level teams within a school structure. The TVL guidelines, as listed below in this policy, say TVL high school interscholastic athletics are intended to provide athletic opportunities for students in grades 9 through 12. The intent of the middle school waivers is to ensure that the high school students have teams to play on. It is not to provide extra opportunities to exceptional middle school athletes. As it relates to the sub-varsity limitations, the MIA rule guidelines say consideration will be given only for sub-varsity teams, as Denise had mentioned, unless school only offers a varsity level team. We have guidelines that were distributed related to indoor track that specifically outline what designates a varsity team member and a JV team member, or a sub-varsity member. All 11th and 12th graders are on varsity. Everyone else is a JV team member unless they score in the top 3. I'll just pull it so I can read it. Sorry, so I don't misquote. Freshmen and sophomores who demonstrate commitment, hard work, excellent attendance, and either score 3 points at league meets or compete as one of our top 3 athletes in the event 3 times during the season. In regards to whether they're whether they're JV meets, the calendar distributed by the coaches at the year indicates some meets are varsity meets, Some meets are explicitly JV meets, and some meets, 2 meets that have already occurred were a blend of JV and varsity. There is clear distinctions that we have varsity level and sub-varsity level teams. The MIA also says consideration will not be given unless high school numbers don't support a team. As I asked the superintendent to confirm earlier this week, no high school student in the high school team has not been restricted in its ability to compete because middle school students were not there. Thus, our high school numbers support a team, which would mean the waiver, we technically don't even need a waiver, let alone to put them on a varsity, at the varsity level when there's sub-varsity opportunity. There's also been a lot of discussion and I think misinformation regarding, as Denise pointed out, we don't want athletes to participate. We're absolutely supportive of middle school athletes participating. The middle school participation, as our policy currently states and what we've been doing, we don't have a waiver. So we're technically violating the MIA policy by having them out there, and no one's saying not have them do anything. The 1223 vote did not take opportunity for them to participate away. Millis is the only TVL school who brings both 7th and 8th graders to indoor track meets. Bellingham is a grade 8 through 12 school and doesn't need a waiver. So we are the only ones in the TVL who provide this opportunity to our kids. The other issue that I've heard is, well, Hopkinton is a less than venue and it's not good enough. But that's where the JV meets are. Many sub-varsity competitions are not held on fields and locations that are as appealing as the varsity ones. Hopkinton was good enough for virtually every middle school student on December 14th. That JV meet included every event where a middle school student is listed on our on the team rosters as possible participants. There wasn't a, I'll go back.
It wasn't a 2 miles, it wasn't a long jump. And the hurdles were not official. There was 3 hurdles for girls and 2 hurdles for boys.
You don't have a middle school student. There is not a middle school student listed as a 2-miler. There is not a middle school student listed.
Saying that they're offered it. It was not offered. It's not an official meet.
The events, other than 2 events that were offered at the varsity meet the night before, and the 2 events that didn't occur have no middle school students assigned to them. The other issue is, well, they had hand timers instead of the automatic timer. Well, the hand time is good enough to qualify for the state meet for the high school level. So I'm not quite sure why hand time is not good enough for the sub-varsity meet. So I think I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I'll just say, I'll just reiterate. I'm fully supportive of middle school students participating in all sports up and through the sub-varsity level. My concern with the amended language as proposed is that it gives more opportunity to a certain subset of athletes, and it's not equitable for all athletes within the district.
Again, I'd just like to point out that we have run it by the MIAA and the TVL. Again, the MIA would like to take a deeper look at it, but they said that they could be okay with it for now, and they want to work with Millis and the TVL moving forward.
Go, please. So I just, as a parent of a middle school cross-country runner, I hope I said this exact same thing last time. I hope it goes without saying that regardless of what we're discussing and as far as policy goes, no one wants to limit participation at all. No one wants to. However, what I see, the difference now, as I look at this, at our policy, it is very difficult for me to understand that the MIAA is okay with us not following what is clearly a black and white policy of theirs. And this is it doesn't make sense. And so this is the position we're in. This is not about, oh yeah, let's let them all. Let's get as many as we can. It's about saying the MIAA says this, we want to do this. I want to know that the MIAA is fine with us not following their policy in writing. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to know. And so we're left with not knowing that with certainty. I'm not saying that what you're saying, Bob, is not accurate. I'm not saying that's not what you were told. But when we talk about policy and writing, I'm merely saying that it is very difficult to marry two different things together when the overarching organization seems to have a policy that's black and white.
I'm sorry, this is not open comment. You can't comment. I'm sorry. No, you can't speak. Okay, what's your question?
Is it possible for the committee to table this until they hear back from the MIAA? Is it possible for them to push and hold on taking or making further decisions and sticking with what has been the standard until there is a clarity on this?
So for me, in understanding from Bob the discussion that you had with the MIA president, is that
No, it's
accurate?
an assistant executive director. Like the middle school liaison for the MIA.
Okay. So for me, I am in this spot where I personally do not have a problem with this with the program continuing as it has. I'm not against children participating, just because it is safe, it is developmentally appropriate, it is not displacing a high school athlete. I am stuck on the fact that that happened on December 18th. And no one in administration caught that when this is a hot topic. But I look at the MIAA and what their policies are, and I interpret them for our policies. That's how I look at the information. And for me, if we have the word of the MIAA representative, let's call that person that, saying that they are okay with this amendment as is for this season, I would say as long as there is strict, like eyes on making sure that a middle schoolers points never contribute towards a varsity team's points in an event, and on the close of the season, we immediately go back to the MIAA for a full review and with our lawyer. I personally feel that we should approve this amendment, and consecutively, I really want to have a better understanding equity-wise from you guys how it's impacting any other sports like golf or whatever, if this should ever be a situation, because I also don't want mid-season next year of a different sport, another family, or someone coming to us and saying, well, we believe our child, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but our child should be playing at a varsity level. I just want, so I want two things to happen here. I want us to be able to move forward with the amendment just for this specific season. Immediately at the close of the season, work with the MIAA, since we basically base our policies off of them in the TVL, to get that buttoned up. And I also want the guarantee from the administration that the middle schoolers' points will never be allowed to, I know it's,
They never have until that point, but it happened once. I hate it.
yep, and whatever you have to do with that organization that does all the numbers. But I also want a larger conversation, to Denise's point, about the equity for these other sports that are out there. So that's really my stance.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Ms. Stevens.
Can I just make a couple of clarifications?
Yep.
So because we are governed by the MIAA, and again, we asked a lot of questions prior to this evening to try to give the administration as much insight into the types of questions that we would be asking tonight and the types of information that we would be looking for in order to help us make the decision this evening. And part of that was something in writing from TVL and MIAA, and we were able to secure something from TVL. Unfortunately, MIA didn't do that. That I have the same concern as Mr. Powers, which is we are governed by their processes and procedures. They have on page 20 of the MIA rule book that member schools or school committees may make rules that are neither member schools nor school committees may make rules that are in any way less restrictive than those of the MIAA. More stringent rules may be adopted locally. And then to clarify on page, someone mentioned page 44. It does not allow for this on page 44. The exact language is, a middle school student is eligible to represent a senior high school on its athletic teams only when the MIA member high school includes those grades and they are under the direct jurisdiction and supervision of the high school principal. So if you have a single principal, like Bellingham has, for both middle and high school, all of those students in that one building underneath that one principal are supported by the MIAA guidelines. Everybody else has to get a waiver. That's why they have the waiver guidelines. So that's straight out of the MIAA documentation.
So to clarify on the first part, so this amendment would be less restrictive than the MIA guidelines, therefore would violate that section of the MIA rules.
Is that part of the handbook speaking about grades? Because there are certain grades.
So it is part of the handbook, and in addition, so one of the things that tends to be helpful for us when we deliberate big issues like this is to see what some of our member schools do. I happened to look at, I didn't have a chance to look at everyone's. I looked at the Wellesley Athletic Handbook. I looked at the Medfield Athletic Handbook. They both had that exact language as it related to middle school and as it related to athletics. that neither member schools nor school committees may make rules that are in any way less restrictive than those of the MIAA. More stringent rules may be adopted locally. That is in the section of governing policy, general rules. So it wasn't specific to
'Cause,
any
yeah,
one
it-
section.
yeah.
And I totally understand that the position that we're in is if the MIA is saying it's okay, then write something down and tell us that it's okay, because to Sean's point,
And why it's okay to contradict everything they have in writing.
right, so to Sean's point, they're saying it's okay, but there are multiple areas in here, in their own language, that it goes against. So if they're gonna say it's okay for us, they need to put that in writing.
I mean, that part of the policy, in my experience, it's only been, you know, in my experience, it applied to like grades. Like you can, according to MIA rules, you can fail 2 classes to be a varsity athlete. We have tougher standards than that. And, you know, so, of course, I haven't dealt with this situation.
That's probably where it's
Sure.
mostly used, and that did come up here years ago, because there were questions here, and we looked at, because I think we ended up having more stringent.
Right.
And there was some confusion on whether you could be stronger or not. But that's probably just where it's mostly used, but if it's in the general rules section, then it applies to everything.
To your point, I'm having been a school administrator for quite a few years. That is exactly where that rule is very common for that specific reason, to apply it to the minimum academic requirements for athletic participation. I'm good. I want to know why the MIA won't tell us we're not violating their rules. I just want to know why they won't put that in writing and say, hey, you don't need a waiver, go for it. I want to know why they won't, because it leaves a gray area that we would then officially act on something that could turn out, they won't put it in writing because we do need a waiver. I understand the if-then of that. It's a challenge to balance
Well, I'll say
those.
in my conversation,
Yeah.
One of the statements that Mr. Bouillard made was he had been away and didn't get back into the office until Monday. Mr. Finney had reached out earlier, and the MIA directed them to Keith, and but he wasn't in till Monday. So he got it on Monday for the first time. I don't think he felt comfortable putting it in writing without further vetting. Understanding our situation, he said, we want to work with schools. So he would be okay with it now, but to Shayna's point, he would want to meet with us and the Tri-Valley League to make sure it, hits all the bases moving forward after this season.
Anything else? Do you guys have anything to say?
No.
Can I?
Please.
It's your handbook.
Yes, please.
I do. I want to say I'm sorry. It's the middle school handbook, and I feel terrible that we're all here. We're all here out tonight because there's ambiguity in the handbook. So I just publicly want to apologize, especially to the kids that were in this pickle. I also I appreciate the debate and the discourse, and I love that the kids spoke. And I think just the one piece of the pickle that I haven't really heard tonight is like the waiver or not having a waiver, is that the middle school students are participating, but they're not competing. So they're
participating in the event, but they're not scoring points. They're not earning positions in future events and opportunities. And I think the one little piece I wanted to share is that, you know, my kid's favorite part is the bus. As a mom of 4, who middle school and high school, you know, it is an opportunity to go and experience the Reggie Center and the Loud and the guns, and the kids are running all the starting pistols, whatever. You know, but it's about the camaraderie. It's about kids. It's about the experience. It's about the chatter on the bus. It's about being part of a team. And so as you guys make this difficult decision, and I'm sorry that we're in this situation where you have to make a hard decision. At the end of the day, I feel like this is about letting kids have experiences and participating, and the one difference I think is just they're not necessarily competing, they're having an experience, but they're not taking points or positions away from other kids. And kind of beyond that, this is beyond my realm of knowledge. So I want to recognize and appreciate everybody's commitment to the kids, because at the end of the day, this really is about our kids. Thank you.
I just want to comment on what you're saying about participate. According to the middle level participation waivers, it says that schools may request the DCA or Rule 53 middle level waiver if the middle school and high schools are under the same head and superintendent. Schools with a separate middle school and principal and high school must receive a Rule 53 waiver for middle school students to participate on a high school team. It doesn't say anything about scoring. It doesn't say anything about displacing high school athletes. It doesn't say anything about levels. It's just about participating. And what you're saying, participating equals not scoring, then that could be interpreted in other areas that, okay, well, I want my 8th grader to practice with the varsity high school team because they're not actually scoring, they're just practicing. So my concern is that this is opening the door to other athletics, other sports to come to us and say, we want our kid to participate because they're just like the track team, is their scores aren't going to count, and that's going to give my 8th grader more experience and more advantage. So that's where I struggle a little bit with the word participate there. They don't call that out specifically about scoring. Thank you.
How long is the handbook
Forever.
How long is the
Every year we approve the handbook, and it's revisited every year.
The handbook is owned by the principals and the administration. They bring it to the school committee. There was ambiguity raised a year ago. There was ambiguity raised in the fall. It's the responsibility of the administration to bring it to the school committee.
How long has middle school runners been running in this way? Years.
Well, except for the fact that this year there's JV meets that didn't exist until this year. So there is a substantial difference in the availability of sub-varsity activities this year that didn't exist until this year.
The MIA raised this issue with us as a school district for us to discuss it today. Like, why is it on the table?
I don't think we can officially call the JV meets.
Okay, you got to start it.
It's evolving here. All right, do you have any more comments? Do you have any more comments? Do you have any more comments, Mr. Minot?
No.
No more comments, Mr. Howard? All right, is there a motion on the table for this, or are we gonna? Is there any,
No,
I
I thought you guys mentioned you were deliberating outside of this, but that's,
No.
so, is that wrong?
No, it's on our action items. Are we gonna move forward?
Someone wants to make a motion, and we just move on.
Madam Chair.
Motion has to be affirmative. And the motion would have to be an affirmative. And then if you, but if you choose, a motion has to be an affirmative action, an affirmative motion. So if there was a motion on the table, the motion would have to be a motion to approve the amendment. That motion would then have to be seconded, and then we would all vote either yay or nay on approving it. But you can't make a motion that is negative.
So, before we move forward, the MIAA said they will not put anything in writing.
And ask for more time. Yeah, and ask for more time.
And ask for more time.
But said they were okay with it for this season.
Okay.
Is there, I don't know how to ask this, I'll just put it out there. Is there an option, and I'll put this in a motion if there is, to approve or to modify a proposed amendment and have an explicit endpoint when that amendment is no longer valid, and then have a contingency for before we return to the same situation again? I don't know if that's made sense what I'm saying.
Make a motion to approve this.
I want to, like,
For the- yeah, I
in theory,
think
to
for
approve
the
it, and then
time
like,
limit on it.
then we revert, then we go back and have to fix it before we are anywhere near
With
this
the
situation again.
understanding-
Like at the close of this season.
The close of that, on the specific date when this season is over, to then say, yeah, we're not doing this again. We got to fix it, and and we need it all in front of us.
That's what.
But the statement about middle school spring track, let's not have that called into question for spring.
There's a middle school.
In the amendment there, I don't know why that had to be written explicitly, but that would be.
There's a middle school team. There's a middle school team, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's not specific.
So let's be clear. Let's be clear about that, because in an email from the superintendent, and let's just put that out there. In an email from the superintendent within this week, and what has happened historically is middle school students participated in the middle school meets for spring track. No middle school student participated in a high school meet.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Yeah,
and
that was
that's-
the-
yeah.
I
That's it.
just,
It has been.
Yeah.
Why not just make the date of closure?
So I think,
of the season?
yeah,
The end of the
I
school
think
year.
there could be a motion to approve the amendment as written with the understanding that it is for this season only and will be revisited at the conclusion of this season.
Well, when Ms. Hurley brings her next handbook to us, we hope to have the new language in there, which will hopefully be
Right.
in
And-
March or April,
Right,
when
and
she
the
brings it every
again,
year.
the MIA has said they will work with us on this.
Can I, Mr. Finney, can I ask when the indoor track season ends? The season, and I'm assuming we are not discussing tournament or like
No, no.
postseason. This is like
No.
at the end, the
26th, thank you.
26th.
Of this month?
January. It's much shorter than the other winter schools.
Mr. Finney, quick question about what happened on the 18th. Is the MIAA aware?
No,
Are
this was
we-
just brought to me this afternoon.
Okay.
So I have not had, while I was entertaining everything for this tonight, that was just brought to my attention. So I
Okay.
have not had a second to, and I also had a basketball game tonight, so.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that
So
we cover all those
I will,
bases.
I will jump on that tomorrow.
Yeah, we can self-report that.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Powers.
I make a motion that we approve the proposed amendment to the middle school handbook regarding middle school athletics as written with the addendum that this is only applicable through the end of this current 2024-2025 indoor track season. At the end date is based on January 26, 2025, assuming that is assume it's right, but just in case I need to
Of course,
do the
it'll
one.
probably snow on
It'll
the
snow or
26th.
something like
Right.
that, but
Right.
Sure.
And yes.
With further communication with the MIA about the new.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, with further communication.
Yes. Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
The vote passes 3-2 in favor. All right, now we are moving into our time and learning. If you're welcome to listen to our Metro West Health Survey presented by Amy Leone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, thanks, Amy. And, oh, perfect. So I'll get off.
I'm sorry, the audience is not as
I
big
know,
for
I'm
your.
sorry,
That's
it's-
all right.
Sorry, it's not 8
It's not
o'clock
personal.
like you were on the agenda.
That's all right.
To be honest, I wish they'd listen to this stuff because this is
I
about
know.
their kids.
Seriously.
But anyway, sorry.
So I won't take forever doing it. There is a lot of slides, and I know that you guys all have them and you've reviewed them. So usually when I do this, so I'm Amy Leone. I'm the town social worker here in the town of Millis. And I think I've been here 3 or 4 years now. Yeah, I think 3
Time
years
flies.
now. Time flies. So thank you. So I've presented this the last 2 years, and this was the 2023 Metro West Adolescent Survey, and we've been doing it since 2006. So we have tons of trend data. One of the things to think about in this is it was done for 6th grade through 12th grade. Some of the surveys, or some of the questions were just asked to 7th and 8th graders, so there is a little bit of a change in there. So when you look at the enrollment, we also have to think about the fact that this was when kids were still on hybrid. So when was the actual date? Just because there was 256 students from 6 through 12 that took the test, but when you look at the results on some of it, it's like 161. So for the 7th and 8th grade. So the numbers are a little skewed as I was like really diving into it. And then for the 12th grade, it was 317 was the total, and 262 took the survey. One of the best parts about the Metro West when they do this survey is if somebody did like ABC, and like they see that discrepancy, they'll pull that survey out so that we can really see that this data is legit and accurate. So one of the first things that we looked at was the substance abuse, and so we did see reduction in the vaping, in the alcohol use, the marijuana use, and then we did see an increase in the lifetime alcohol use. So one of the things we do is also the SBIRT, so we ask the kids about drinking and things like that, and it is always interesting. The question that we get from middle school students is, does that sip of alcohol count when we're at church or something like that, or at a celebration? So there definitely, some people say when you do these screenings, they ask, like, oh, they're just like saying whatever, saying no, but they really do ask the questions to make sure that they're answering it accurately. So this is just kind of where there was that increase a little bit of the lifetime alcohol use. I did put in one of the images just to show from 2006 kind of the trends of it and where it increased a little in 2023. This is always the part that I look at the most, is like the perceived risk, to see like what are kids really saying about, you know, is there a risk to vaping? Is there a risk to, you know, their marijuana use and to drinking? Because I think that goes into like, what are, you know, the social norms? What are they believing? And so the results here are great, you know, where there's 94% of the 7th graders, 88% of the 8th graders, you know, seeing that there is that risk to vaping as well as alcohol and marijuana. In marijuana, they asked them if it was once or twice a week, which I think was really important because it specified it, you know, to them using it versus just saying marijuana use in general. This is in regards to the high school. These are some of the stats for the high school in regards to the vaping, the alcohol use, the marijuana use, and then the prescription drugs. One of the things that we have seen that has been an increase is the alcohol use in the lifetime and in the past 30 days for the high school students. And you can see this here in the trend data that's shown, how there is that increase at 69%, and then also in the past 30 days. This is again the perceived risk, where you look at, you know, the perceived risk for the high school students is pretty low in regards to their marijuana use or the risk of marijuana. Obviously vaping, it shows, you know, that 81% of the 12th graders and 56% of the 11th graders perceive that, you know, it's fairly easy to access marijuana. So that's something I think we all know that. We know that that's kind of the trend with the kids, and what we need to really look at is, you know, where are they getting it? Is it from the dispensaries? What's happening with that? And then, you know, you're not only seeing this here in Millis, we're seeing that across all the towns that I work in. That this perceived risk is, you know, that it is easy for them to get. And so it's, you know, doing a lot of education on that. And I think one of the things that you're seeing a lot more of as a mental health counselor is that we're seeing a lot of kids who are using marijuana that is kind of, I wouldn't say, but it's having a switch to their mental health issues, where you're starting to see more depression, you're starting to see more psychosis and things like that. So it does increase the chances of things being developed, and we are seeing a lot of that. We're also seeing a lot of kids who, wherever they're getting the marijuana, there is things that are laced in it. So a lot of the education is teaching them about the fact that they are at risk. There is, you know, if they're getting marijuana, there's fentanyl, you know, in it. If there's gummies, there could be something in it. And we're seeing a lot of kids in the hospital that, not particularly from Millis, but, you know, in general, that is happening. So it is really important, that education piece for the kids. This is obviously on the vaping across the grades, where, you know, it stays pretty consistent with the moderate to great risk. This is pretty much what we've done over the last, since 2023, what the school has done to address the substance abuse. So like I said, we do the SPERT screening in 8th and 10th grade. And one of the good things is about that is that I come in and do it, as well as another one of the therapists from my office. So it's not somebody from the school. It's somebody that's totally unknown to them. They don't have a relationship with them. They can be honest with them. So that's something we do. School-wide presentations, health and wellness events. One of the things that we had talked about a while ago was obviously the vaping detection machines that are in the bathrooms and the locker rooms. And those they work. And so the other thing is that we had like the opioid abatement. So what we did was we put a little bit of funds in there for the allocation of substance abuse resources here in the school. So whether that's presentations, whether that's myself or somebody else coming in to do substance abuse counseling, or if there's a referral for a family, making sure that we get that support for whoever needs it. And I think the one thing to understand is that it may not be the individual in the high school or the middle school that's having a struggle with substance abuse. It might be a parent or a sibling or somebody. So making sure that we're providing that support for the whole entire family. And when some, you know, a kid comes to talk about it, you know, then you know that you need to address it and see what we can do, and that seems to be the biggest thing that happens. And then we obviously have the individual counseling that we come in, and then they have the Say Something Anonymous app, which we'll get into that.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
The vaping detectors, you say they work. How often do those go off?
I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot less than when we first got them. You know, the kids found out they work. They're not, it's not 100% foolproof.
Sure.
You know, but it has had a positive impact. You know, I think about when vaping first came out, I was principal, and I'd go in that from around the corner there, and you couldn't see when you walked in. It smelled okay, but
Nice
so
and fruity.
we've come a long way. But so that's been a tool that has been very helpful for us.
And they did the I Decide, so like if you got caught, then you would do like this program that was here, and that was really good. And when we would talk about, when I would talk to some of the kids who were part of it, you know, they really I don't want to say enjoyed it, but they got things out of it. You know, they learned things.
Yeah, and that was also good because rather than a suspension, you know, they have another opportunity to not be suspended.
Is there
Learn something.
Is there an opportunity for students to like confidentially ask if they can join? I was an I Decide facilitator, so I know the program really well.
Yeah.
Is there a way, or have students like tried to say, I need help, but I don't want my parents to know, kind of thing? Is there an option for that?
Yeah,
or?
I think there have been some kids
Yeah.
who have kind of
self-referred,
volunteered to do it.
It's tricky,
not
but
great
it's
numbers,
sure.
but I think there have been.
Yeah, starts with
kid or
one.
two.
That's right. You know.
Can I ask before you move on?
Yeah.
I know you do the screenings in 8th and 10th. Have you considered doing them earlier, like in 6th?
So it's through Children's Hospital. So it's like a program that they, in the state, says you do it in 8th grade and 10th grade. So I think that right now they're looking at is that really the right grades to do them in? And it's also when you do them. So like in some other districts, they do them like towards the end of the year, which when you ask the craft survey, it's like over the past 12 months. Well, let's think about it. In 12 months, we don't know what we did, you know, so you're asking how many times in the past 12 months have you had a sip of alcohol? It's a long time. So what we started doing here in Millis was we did it at the beginning of the year, so that if the kids did something over the summer, then it was not as long of a time, so to speak. But they are looking at, is that age correct? Is that grade 8, you know, appropriate to be asking them? Because you could ask, you know, earlier. I agree. So Millis is one of the few schools that is in the Children's Hospital, like that they help facilitate it. And as somebody who does the data, it is awesome because they correlate it all for you and get your results and submit it to the state, which that's like the hardest part, to make sure you get it accurate. So it has been a wonderful thing that Millis has been able to be part of. So this is all the time whenever I do these things. This is the first questions that I always look at is the alcohol use and the driving, you know, because I think even though we're doing a good part of kids understanding how risky drinking and driving is, and also marijuana use, I think it's always a question, one of the data points that I always look at is to say, you know, what are we doing? And when you look at the middle school kids, it didn't ask it in this summary, it didn't ask about the middle school kids if they had driven with somebody who had been drinking and driving. And I am curious of why that question is taken out of this, because I think that is really an important question. Because we know the middle school kids, it's either a parent, older sibling, or something. So that was one question that I did reach out to the Metro West Foundation and say, why was it removed from the survey this year? Because it's always been in there, and I feel that personally, I feel that that's important. So we don't have that data this time.
The texting and driving is an interesting question. I feel like that wasn't on there a few years ago.
No, it wasn't.
And it's higher than drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
It's really scary. And so obviously these are just some of the strategies that we have, educating the kids about the substance abuse and the laws. And I think they do a really good job with driver's ed, starting to really teach them what those laws are and what happens. But we all know that adolescents think that they're like invincible to everything. So it is really important, to have these discussions with them. This is on the violence, so obviously talking about like the middle school with the physical fighting, weapon carrying, and then obviously experiencing violence in the home. That experiencing violence in the home was a new set of questions that they started asking over the last, I think it's been two surveys that they've asked that. And then this is obviously with the high school.
And that's a scary proposition too.
It's definitely. One of the things is that when we also looked at it, and I know that we've had some discussions about this, is like when they say carried a weapon, like really thinking about what that is. Is it Boy Scouts? Is it fishing? Is it, so how do they take the context of that question when answering it? Because, you see 6.2, like that's more than 0. So, you want to think about that too. And in their lifetime, just looking at it. Those are the things that I always think about that when I start to look at these data points. Obviously, the bullying and the cyberbullying, these numbers are average across, Metro West. What we have, we're pretty comparable to everything. We are a little bit lower than we were in the past, which is kind of interesting because this would have been towards COVID time. So you would have thought like the cyberbullying might have been a little bit higher, but it wasn't in the middle school. And here's just the trend of the cyberbullying, or of bullying in itself. Just whether it was on school property, whether it was talk to an adult about being bullied, talking to a parent, and then were they a victim of bullying. And then this is one of the questions that they asked in 2023 was about identity-based bullying. And so they kind of broke down the bullying into different categories, and one of it was about identity-based. So that was on like height, weight, how they looked, and whether that was through bullying or cyberbullying. And then these are just some of the strategies that are happening. I also included that in the K through 5, they also, I know that this data doesn't show anything about elementary school kids, but they also start a bullying prevention lessons in kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And then it's followed up in middle school with second step. And then in the high school, they just have the health curriculum, and they have a violent relationship grant that they received in 2023. And then they have the JED goal, which is developing the bullying prevention. And then the high school principal is actually involved in the Metro West Anti-Bullying Coalition. So this year they're going to have action steps that the coalition, or that the schools will be able to use to address bullying and cyberbullying. So that will be across the whole Metro West, and he'll be able to bring that back to us. One of the other things just about the Say Something, so that's a 24-hour like anonymous tip line. And so I had talked to the SRO, and since 2/1/24, there had been 10 incidents reported. So even when you go in the bathroom, there's little QR codes and things right in the back of the stalls that talk about the app, and that you can, scan it and use it if you needed to.
And I'd say about that, one of our concerns, and you may remember when the committee approved partnering with the Sandy Hook Foundation for it, one of our concerns was that kids would just do like prank things, and they said, well, in the start, there might be a spike in that, but then the kids realize, but it's really, knock wood, been like legitimate concerns. kids had about their peers.
Yeah, and things that have been brought to my attention through the work with the police department is like they're real, they're friends that had concerns and they had, they reached out and they were legitimate, like it was really good. And I think that best part about it was then being able to reach out to the parents and being able to have that conversation with the parents as well as the kid, so that everybody was kind of on the same page and could get the kids the help that they needed if that was the case. So obviously the mental health findings, and this was once again coming right out of COVID too. So the depressive symptoms, it was really great to see that we had a decrease in a lot of our stress, anxiety, depressive symptoms, and especially the suicide, which was huge because during the last period there was a little bit of an increase, and so that always makes you a little bit cautious of what's happening. Then this was the stress and coping. It was interesting because once again, this is what they're stressing and coping on, and in the past they had asked how they deal with the stress, which I thought was a wonderful question, but for some reason they didn't ask that again. I don't know why. I thought that was extremely intelligent to ask because we want to know what are these kids doing to actually deal with their stress and anxiety. And it was like, do you play video games, do you talk to a friend, do you exercise, it was really wholesome things, and it wasn't in there anymore. So that was another question that I asked them, that why was that taken out. And then go ahead.
With the cyberbullying, have you are you able to ask them if there could be a question of, are you cyberbullied during the school day? Like, because we know they have their phones, right?
So there is
well,
one.
middle school, high school? Middle school does. They have their phones. Like, I'd be curious to see, are they, besides in-person bullying, are they also being cyberbullied while they're sitting at their desk? You know what I mean?
Well, one of the interesting parts is that they did ask a question about, they didn't get that specific about the cyberbullying in school, but they asked how many of them were using their, like how often, how many hours, I think I have it in here, how many hours they use their phone well in school. So that they were, so I mean, obviously middle school doesn't have it now, but like that was something, but I could look into it to see if they did, because it did break it down a little bit, if it did specify in school. I can definitely do that. This statistic of, when you look at the high school students and them experiencing it, it all seemed normal. It just always, when I see, a higher number, 11.5 of students that seriously considered suicide, always makes me really nervous, So that's obviously something that, they do the signs of suicide screening with the high school students. So that's something that obviously if kids are flagged, then they're referred for individual therapy or in-school therapy or additional resources. And the school does that. So.
I'm actually curious about the numbers increase. Are they increased from like pre-COVID numbers? Like, I'm curious because I feel like because of COVID, there's a lot more anxiety and, stress and depressive symptoms that I think we're seeing.
So it's interesting. So 2021, right? That was like COVID, right?
Yeah.
So the numbers were like for depressive symptoms, it was 26.5. This is for high school, and now it reduced to 22.
Okay.
So even when one of the biggest jumps for this was the self-injury. So during COVID, it was 21.9, and now it's down to 14.8. So we did see a decrease in a lot of that.
But I'm curious if you have 2019 or 2018,
so
what
18.
those numbers are.
So you do. So 18 was a lot lower.
Yeah.
It was where you had 18%, 17%, 14%. So it was. We did see that huge increase during COVID.
But it's coming back down.
It's coming back down.
Yeah.
And you also saw, as a therapist during COVID, we saw the numbers increase astronomically. And I think it was great that everybody got the support, but as a therapist who's been doing this for so long, the difference between doing telehealth and in person, it's like apples and oranges. Like really being with a person is totally, for both the therapist and the client, I think is just completely different. It works for some people, I know it, but just in my experience, especially with adolescents and young kids. So now most of the therapists are going back in person, and some just want to stay home. So. Okay, so this once again is the stress and coping strategies that the kids are or what they're stressing about. And you can see once again about school issues, which is more of like their academic stuff. And then social issues was the second highest, and then their physical or emotional health. And then about family.
Typically not, but go ahead. What do you got, Joyce?
What happens if you suspect a child is being in a compromised position? Do you go to you? Do you go to the school? Do you go to the police?
As a parent?
Say I suspect.
Hypothetically,
yes, that I suspect somebody is in danger or is suicidal or is being abused or in any negative situation that you've brought up. How as a neighbor or a old person, older person, how do you address it?
I think a lot of times, I think some people who are comfortable, they'll go to the principal, or they'll go to call the police station, ask to either speak with myself, like the social worker, or with the school resource officer too. And that's usually, especially if it has to do with a student, he may know them, know a little bit more history, and be able to kind of take that information from whoever the neighbor is or whoever it is, and then start to dig more into it. So, and there's no reason, if you have that concern, definitely giving a call, and the worst that can happen is you look into it and there was nothing. There was
Correct.
nothing, and that's great, but.
But it would be, it's okay to contact
100%.
you or contact, because sometimes you're in a situation where you're like, okay, how do I handle this?
Yeah.
And even as gray as I am, I still have questions as to how do I handle
Yeah,
something.
no,
So-
it's true, and and because you have sometimes that gut instinct of like something doesn't feel right, and you just want to like put another set of eyes on it, and sometimes just passing that on, because 9 times out of 10, if you felt that gut instinct about something, other people have too, and maybe they're already on the radar of other people.
Great.
Thank
you.
You're welcome.
And I thank you for allowing me.
Yeah,
to
of
ask.
course.
No, because now more people might have had that question, and it's on air now. So there obviously is tons of resources when it comes to mental health. Obviously, when we look at what happened with the school, we had to adjust we had to change the staffing in regards to adjustment counselors and the bridge programs, but there is the SELF program in both the middle and the high school. And then what we did was we implemented a therapist to be in here one full day. And so she is actually here. She sees high school, middle school, and elementary school. So she's here the full entire day till like whenever elementary school gets out. And it was kind of, the first few weeks she didn't have, she had like 1 or 2 people. And now I think her schedule is full. She's definitely full. So now, we're starting to look at them. And one of the biggest things is like, sometimes as a therapist, I've done in-school therapy before, and one of the most important pieces was making sure that the families were involved and coming in for the intake and making sure that there's collateral contact with the parents. And then because there needs to be that buy-in, because what happens as of June 15th? They stop coming to counseling, and then everything that you did, now in September, they're back on the radar. Well, no, we want them, you don't have to come every week, but like just stay in contact so that you can keep that up. So that was one of the most important things with the parents or the students that she's seeing in the school, was that the parents agreed to that piece of it, that they were going to be involved, rather than it just being an easy solution that you don't have to drive your kids anywhere. So Because that's important. Parents are, we know, we're with our kids 24/7, and a therapist is only with them 1 hour a week. So that was really important to me.
Have you found it, since the aftermath of COVID, have you found it, have parents been finding it easier to match with an outside counselor than a couple years ago, or is it still as difficult?
In regards to the waiting list,
Yeah.
I think it's still difficult.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I say that is because there aren't enough afternoon appointments. That's why.
Yep.
And so
Very aware.
sometimes, you know, like even for my practice, like I'll say to parents, like, if you want to come first thing in the morning, we'll give them a note, you know, like, or, so, you know, something, like we could see them at 2:30 if they get out at 3 or so, you know, something to just like work around it. But that's the hardest part. I think there are therapists, it's just there's not enough afternoon hours in the day. If you want to come during the day, we could see tomorrow.
Right.
But that's not what happens. And you know, and just for my practice, just speaking from what I know, the number of elementary school kids that are on our waiting list has increased dramatically. So we used to see like the adolescents was like the highest that we had referrals for, and now it's more of that elementary age kid. That's where we're seeing more of it. So.
Do you feel that, just speaking from my son, he's in first grade, and whenever I've been in the classrooms, you can see there's a lot of social, emotional struggles. And do you find it's the kids that were COVID toddlers?
I mean, you do see that. I mean, and then you see it, I see that as like kind of that adjustment of like, now they're trying to be provided structure, you know, and that was, I mean, I know I was guilty of it. You know, my son was younger too, and I just said yes to everything because I had to work.
Survival,
you know, like I just did what I needed to do. So learning that structure and learning the word no, you know, was a little bit hard. So I think that that's also, you know, a struggle for them in the beginning. And what do you do with all these emotions, you know, and this, you know, so I think that that is something, and I do think that like the school's doing a really good job trying to really bubble wrap them with all that social and emotional learning and curriculum and language, and, you know, but at the same time, it's got to be transferred to home too, you know, so it's kind of like we can't just hope that the school fixes the problem, you know, it has to be a whole community and, you know, the parents too.
Yeah, because I look back and my daughter her kindergarten year was COVID, and I know Clyde Brown really did a lot of work on trying to give them the tools to learn how to do deep breathing and all the mindfulness. And I look back and I realize how much my husband and I were trying to help her with that. And then there was my toddler who, I don't know if we were turning to him and being, you know, interpreting it for his age, because we were just trying to get her through it. So I look back at that and I'm like, because my daughter, you know, learned all those tools to regulate, and the boy, like, you know, I feel like him being the toddler, it was like, oh my goodness, okay, you're crazy, but you know, we didn't regulate with you too much.
Yeah, but it's definitely something that we have seen. I mean, and we're seeing it on our referral list. So, and I think like even having like the townwide social worker is like, parents will call, you know, and just like have those questions, you know, like what do you think, or what are the resources and things like that, that now the town has somebody that they can like call, that, you know, like can say, all right, we'll give the social worker a call and maybe she'll have some resources. And I think it not only has to do with the kids, but even for like elders too, you know, like it's for parents who are getting older, like what are the resources, what are, you know, what do we do, what, you know, just many different things, or even how do you deal with a parent who is getting older, because that's totally a different thing that we're, you know, us as adults aren't used to. So having the social worker around to help with that, navigate that has been helpful too. So this is just the one on sexual intercourse and condom use for high school students. This goes through the physical activity for the middle school kids, and also about their sleeping, and then the high school kids, which they're not sleeping as much as the middle school kids, but we know that. And then this goes to that question that you asked about the online behaviors. So, you know, this is used daily, and then there's that question of like 5%. Well, this is good. 5% only check their smartphone during school, so that's really good
That's impressive.
because they don't have them. So yeah, so that, and then, you know, when they're not doing their homework and things like that. So this also goes in the negative effects that the kids were starting to see in regards to their social media, to their digital media use. So this just kind of outlines it, where they broke down it into different things about their performance in school. What does it make their sleep worse? Does it change their overall mood, their physical health, their mental health, and then their relationships with their friends. And then this is for the high school kids. And then this just kind of breaks it down the same way, the negative effects that the high school kids see.
Does it dive deeper into like what the boys are viewing online, what the girls are viewing online?
Viewing?
What,
it didn't say that.
like what, I don't know if there's specific, you know.
Are they on
social
like
media versus
TikTok?
gaming, you mean?
Or what kind, if they're using porn, girls
Like
are
sexting?
on TikTok with skincare. Is it, you know
It
what I mean?
didn't
Like
go to those deep, like that.
diving
It didn't
further
funnel down
sorry,
that
school
far.
me, but I'm just, you know, it's a real
Yeah.
issue with the boys and girls.
Yeah, it didn't go that deep in regards to like what platforms are you on. It didn't do that. It does break it down of like girls and boys like in these negative effects. It does break it down that way, but not in regards to what platforms are they on. I don't know, like when you opt in, like so you can add questions to the Metro West survey. So each year you can add different, you know, they can suggest, like the school could suggest different things. So that could be, you know, if that was something that you guys were really interested in.
I just find it interesting just for they're living so much in a virtual world. It is really important to understand what types of virtual worlds that they're living in to try to see, you know, if there's a problem to bring them back out and start interacting in person.
And I think the other part, like what I've been doing in a lot of communities is educating the parents on like the AI world. Because that's really important too for parents to understand like that whole world and the effects that it can have on your kids as well. So, you know, that's something too that just, there's always something new. So once we send something out, there's gonna be something that's coming right after.
Sure.
It's changing.
Yeah.
And this just kind of goes into the school connectedness for the students, the school climate, you know, the peer support, the adult support, which, you know, these are all wonderful results for the middle school and for the high school as well, which they're great. One of the questions that they took out, which of course I loved this question too, was that how many times a week are you eating dinner with your family at the table? That was a question that was in there like from 2018 all the way till this year, and I thought that was a great question because, you know, I know with sports you're running around everywhere, but you still have to make that time to sit down at the table, and that was a question, and it was really great because the numbers during COVID were so high that I was really interested to see what they were now, but the question's gone. So I couldn't, that was another question I asked them if they could put that back in. So these, you know, so I always think that these are great, and what we kind of, you know, one of the best parts was, you know, thankfully the whole leadership team, I had this data and I pulled this together, and then they all came together with me to kind of go through and discuss, you know, review the data so that all the principals and the leadership team knew what was coming out, and then also helped me to do all the strategies and what the school's doing so that you guys all had an encompass of like everything that was happening. So, you know, I thank all of that, everybody for that too, because I think that's important. This is your data, and now we can kind of really look at it and say what strategies do we need to put in place for, you know, some of these things to address. questions?
Well, I was just wondering, so we were at the Ashland High School the other day, and they had a stat that said like 5% of students at the high school, only 5% of students at the high school vape. Like, to try to prevent kids from being peer pressured into doing it. So I was wondering if Millis middle school or high school, whatever, takes the data from this and creates posters to basically say like, it's normal to not do these things. It's okay that you choose not to do these things.
And so one of Metro West will do like infographics that will pertain to like the vaping. So I think they did one that was on it. So I think all we need to do is just like request it, and they have like all that wonderful graphics that they do. So I think we can just request it, because they did some on depression, and then they did on like the LGBT, kind of just more awareness and the emotions. They did one on that just to kind of bring awareness to everybody that it's okay to talk about it. But that's definitely something we can ask them, or I can even call Ashley.
I mean, I don't know if you want that, but I was just wondering.
And I would also say that, we have Students Against Destructive Decisions.
But like, I wonder if they looked at those data.
They've used some of the Metro West data for their bulletin board and the information that they get out to kids. But I do think this data can sometimes be good to say, it's not, when they say everyone's drinking. No, not everyone is drinking.
Right. That's what I was getting at.
Or everybody's smoking weed.
Yeah.
Get that. Like everybody is, but that's not the truth, So yeah, it can be used, and it can also be skewed too, but you see what the value is in, looking at it to really help to build those protective factors for these kids and for the families in general. So, well, thank you. I know this took a long time.
That's okay.
No, it's great information.
Very good.
Sorry you were delayed getting
No, it's all right. It's all right.
And I'd just like to thank Amy for all the work she's done.
Yes, thank you so much.
And she's so great to work with in the schools.
Thank you.
It's really it's been a great partnership, and Amy's been a great resource for us. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. We're gonna. All right, we're gonna move on to our. We're gonna move on to our chair report. We're gonna talk about see if there's an MSBA update. Any updates on the MSBA?
Well,
Since our last meeting?
At a meeting on December 10th, the school administration, put forward the design option 4A to the committee as our preferred option. And the school building committee will be meeting on January 22nd at 7:30. And we'll be looking at, the next steps in the process. And the school building committee will eventually determine what option, they want to pursue.
I just wanted to add that a lot of comments and conversation has come up about regionalization, and the school committee has actually reached out to surrounding towns regarding regionalization, and with some towns we've been working for a little under a year, seeing if it would be something that they would be interested in, and every single town that we've reached out to has said they're not interested at this time in regionalizing with our town. So regionalization is not something that's on the table, but what did come out of our conversations with other school committees and superintendents is we're working together to form a special ed partnership, and so we're working with other schools in the area of special ed programming to help see if we can help each other offset some of the special ed costs that have arisen due to the lack of or the increased prices of out-of-district tuitions and the increasing in special education. And this is something that all the towns have been interested in and agreed upon that this would be a good thing for them. So while regionalization is off the table at this time, this other opportunity has come up that hopefully will benefit all the communities in the area.
And Madam Chair, I just want to add the ones you reached out, you reached out to every abutting town to Millis, including the regional school districts.
Yes.
So it's not just like a couple that we picked. We
Yeah, every
you
single surrounding
put the
town
blank
that
you put the
touches
blanket
us,
request
we've
out there.
requested, and they've said they're not interested in regionalizing with us at this time.
But this is really great about the special education
Right.
Yes.
partnership.
Yes.
Hopefully that will provide some relief to all of the districts.
Yeah, we can help each other, but
It's I mean,
Kudos
it's
to you, Madam Chair. That
Yes.
was something that you brought up
Thanks.
months ago as an idea. So thank you.
Bob for implementing
well,
it.
it's you know, it's a problem that's not exclusive to Millis.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it
right,
makes
right,
sense to,
sure.
you know, partner up where we can.
All right, we're going to move on to your superintendent report. We are an hour and a half behind schedule.
Okay.
Sorry.
I can make it quick.
Okay.
The enrollment numbers, Clyde Brown at 612 up 3, Millis Middle 266 down 1, Millis High School 296 no change, 6 at ties unchanged, out of district up 1 to 23. Total is 1,202, so we're up 3, and we crossed that 1,200 threshold
Oh, yeah.
as a district. And choice enrollment has remained at 52 since December. And then the other, and I'll do this real quick, I sent the committee just an update on question 2 from November, which was the MCAS question. And the first thing I want to make clear is that question 2 did not banish MCAS. Our kids still have to take MCAS. Our school accountability ratings still factor in attendance, participation rate at MCAS. We still need to have 95% of our kids participate at MCAS to meet federal levels. The performance of students still impacts our accountability rating. What has changed is that MCAS is no longer a graduation requirement, the 10th grade MCAS. So we have the MCAS used to certify what was known as a competency determination, a CD. You needed to get your local graduation requirements, which was 4 years of English, so on and so forth. You needed that, and you needed the CD, which was you got through passing MCAS. Can't use MCAS for the CD anymore, so now we as an administration have to come up with a process to certify that the student has met certain standards in those things that were tested by MCAS. We have to come up with the coursework that would be necessary to certify that, and then that will become the CD. So there's a meeting of superintendents later this month, and we're going to, we have to kind of make sure it aligns, because if we get a transfer kid from one of those contiguous towns, we have to have an understanding that that kid has met the requirements of a competency determination. So we will be coming to the committee at some point with the process for determining a competency determination, and that would be something that would need the board's approval to move forward. The good news is that our class of 2025, the kids graduating this year, have all earned their competency determination because they passed MCAS before the law went into effect. So they're all set. If we get a transfer kid who hasn't passed MCAS in the class of 2025, we have a problem. But right now, we don't have a problem with that class.
Can I ask, so we need to come up, or you need to come up with a way to certify that they would pass, they have a competency of what they would have been tested on in MCAS.
Right, from the 2023 MCAS.
So I'm not familiar with MCAS. I don't have a child at that age, but wouldn't it correspond to the student's grades? it's English, math, and science, right?
Yeah, it would have to align with the state frameworks, the standards for that. And, you know, certain coursework would, like you have to take, you know, 4 years of math. The MCAS tested geometry and algebra. So if our 4 years of math didn't include geometry and algebra, then our mere grades wouldn't reach that level. Our kids do have to take algebra and geometry, but we'll have to say which specific classes they need to demonstrate mastery in for the competency determination.
Okay. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
think it seems crazy that there could be topics that we don't actually teach in school that are on a standardized test.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that's
It's
like to put kids
right.
through that.
What we're not, it's not just saying, okay, we don't need the competency determination, our local requirements are enough. We're still required to come up with the competency determination. So we'll be there.
Okay.
Is it makes me think of choice districts, and like even just with what you're saying about area superintendents. Like, I mean, I can imagine like, you know, if different choice districts have different requirements. Like I mean, it's.
Millis could be off the list for kids to.
Oh, that's the easiest one. Let's all go there. Or like, you know, it's
and
complicated.
You know, and some there have been some question. Well, could a district, could a school committee approve just having MCAS remain as the competency determination? And that would violate the law. You could make that a local requirement if you wanted. I don't think I'd recommend that.
Yeah.
But the CD has to certify coursework classes. So.
Does it have to be in the form of a test?
No. In fact, it's in the form of completing courses, and not just completing them, showing mastery.
Yeah.
Which is a higher bar than just passing class.
Yeah.
So we have to determine how are we going to certify this.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing is, and this is kind of new business because I just got this yesterday, and it's in the packets, that we just got a quarterly update from Tech, and so that's part of the packet. So I think that's it for me.
All right. Oh, just their like budget, what their okay. Okay, so that's the new business. I think that is everything on our agenda here. We are going to move into executive session. We have 2 units to start talking about getting ready for a contract negotiation, Unit A and Unit C. So we're going to move into executive session to discuss our strategy and when we're gonna start that and how it's gonna work. So I will take a motion.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Gibbons.
I make a motion to exit to executive session for the purposes of, to discuss contract negotiations, not to return to open session.
Second. Any further discussion? This is a roll call. Ms. Gibbons.
Aye.
Mr. Conroy.
Aye.
I am an aye. Shana.
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Powers.
Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is January 21st, right here. And we hope to have just as many folks come and join us.